Welcome everyone to another video. My name is Haggot, aka Hags, and today I'll be showing you around my property and what I look for before I purchase a property. So kind of use this property as a showroom property, not exactly a property I'm viewing, because of course we've kind of taken this back to brick, and if you haven't seen last video, that video is all about updates with this property. But what we're going to do is we're going to go around each room and I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm looking for when I'm viewing a property. Whether it's done up and you're looking to just move into it and you need some ideas of certain things to look for, or it's a doer-upper. And we know with doer-uppers there are some things that can be hidden that you may not spot, or something you might miss. Get a pen out, get a paper out, write these things down, and as you go around the property you want to tick these lists off one by one. But let's go on into bedroom number one, let's say. And let me tell you the certain things that I look for in a bedroom that sort of pins up as a red flag to me, but also something that is also fixable. So first of all is the size. You want to make sure that the size of the bedroom is a good size for a first bedroom. Usually with photos online, the bedrooms can be deceiving. They may not look as big, they may not look as small. So when you come to the property, you can actually see how big the bedroom is and if it fits a double bedroom. Because of course in this current climate, you know that if you are going to flip a property or rent it out, everyone's becoming a bit more pickier. So the second thing I look for while we're here at the window, you want to see if the windows are double glazing or not, because these things can cost an arm and a leg, especially when there's more than one which needs work done to it. And the way I know that the window needs changing or not is there's a few factors. First of all, if it's double glazing or not, that's pretty simple. You can go up to it and you can see it. The second thing is of course the way the window opens. So there'll be a hinge which you open like that and then you push and it should open. Sometimes they are jammed, sometimes the window's almost collapsing, and those are certain things, yes, they can be fixed, but keep that in mind when you look at the other windows, because if the condition of this window isn't great, I would definitely keep an eye on the other windows. One more thing as well is the window can be blown, which means in the double glazing, so double glazing is almost like that, in between there is almost a wet look. And that means that that one glass, whichever glass is on that is all wet, just needs replacing. Again, doesn't cost an arm and a leg, so I wouldn't worry too much, but again, note that one down just in case. So let's go on now into bedroom 2 and I'll show you again other things I look for, because of course this is what really either makes your money or the dream property that you are looking for. So the next thing is the floorboards. If you pan down, you can see right now, it's all exposed right now. So I can definitely see what condition the floor is in. But usually there's carpets on top, there's wood laminate flooring on top, who knows what's on top, especially with an older property. So what I like to do is just have a little walk around. I'll walk around like this. I know this looks kind of silly, but it has to be done. So I'll just walk around, especially the edges. Always walk around the edges, get a feel for the floor, and sometimes if they're sagging, if you can lift up the carpet to see what's under there, great. If not, I'll just bounce on it a bit and just see, is it just replacement of a wood, or potentially has there been any problems with the flooring, or even worse, the structure problems. But if it's only this room and the rest of the rooms are perfectly fine, I wouldn't worry. I'd assume that it's just the floorboard that needs replacing. So for bedroom 2, again, you want to see the size of it, that's another factor. And if it's a third bedroom as well in the property, again, they're not going to be the biggest in the world. I wouldn't worry too much about third bedroom. As long as it fits a single bed, you're perfectly fine. Let's go on into the living room, and there's certain things I look for in a living room as well, because again, that's where most of the living time is going to be spent. So in this room again, size, always keep that noted. Not only that, but when I look in each room, I want to make sure there's no damp problems. And if you remember from my last series of my property journey, if you haven't seen it, I promise you want to go check that one out. There was rising damp up to around here. And that went around almost the whole downstairs of the property. And to get that fixed was a fair amount of money. I'll be honest, it does cost a fair bit. But luckily for me, the previous owners already got it done. I don't know why they got it done, because the property was in awful condition anyway. But they'd managed to get it done, so for me it wasn't a worry. But definitely rising damp is something you want to look for. Also, any type of damp, condensation in a bathroom, you want to see why there is condensation in a bathroom. Is it because there's no ventilation? Or does the window need opening? Or has no one lived in the property for long enough? Who knows? It could be one of those factors. But again, you can ask the agent, they'll have a rough idea about that as well. Again, in the living room, you've got the size, you've got the space, and now you just need to envision, where's everything going to go? So I can imagine in this room, you'd probably put a TV on this wall, and beautiful sofa just going along here. And then of course, if you want one under the windowsill as well, perfectly fine. And as you know, with this property, we do have some damp problems. Or I'm calling it damp problems, more like leaks. But again, that's another thing you want to look for, because if it's a 2-story property, if there's some leaks in the upstairs in a couple of the rooms, red flag. You want to make sure that the roof is perfectly fine, and what you want to do is go from the outside, have a good look from about, not too far at the end of the garden, but far enough, and then you'll be able to tell if the roof is good or not. Another way of knowing if the roof is good or not, so I'm hitting you all this information, but I promise you want to know all these things. So if you're looking at the roof and the top part is straight, you're fine. If the top part starts sinking a bit or it's not level, get that checked. Get a structural survey done, because that means we've got big problems. And you can kind of compare that to the next door neighbour. If their one's straight, your one isn't, you know there's something wrong with your roof. So let's go on now into the kitchen. So let me show you, again, certain things I look for, because in the kitchen is usually where you have the fuse box and the boiler. And of course this property doesn't have a boiler, so that's one factor I had to look into to make sure that this property had connection to it. So I am actually getting tested for the connection of this property to see that it all works properly, which should be fine because there is a connection, it's just capped. But again, you want to make sure that the boiler is in okay condition and when it was last serviced or checked, because that would mean maybe you might have to replace the boiler, or you might have to replace the pipework because it's so old it doesn't heat the property well enough. Coming around, again, I would look at the fuse box. Of course, for me this was the fuse box. So whatever you want to class this as, do what you want, but this is not a fuse box to me. This is all going to be replaced, I could tell straight away. But if there is a fuse box in there, usually there's a date written on there when the last time it was checked. And if not, of course, the sellers will know exactly when it was last checked. That's the best way of putting it. And another thing with the electrics is the sockets. I know there's a socket here, but this definitely doesn't work. You want to see that the sockets are high enough from the ground. So usually a socket should be, I'd say around here. I don't really have an exact measurement, but they will be around here. If they're almost touching the ground, then you know you'll have to basically just rip that out and put a new one up here. So that would then factor in plastering costs as well, because you're digging into the wall, you're opening up the wall, and the plaster will start cracking. So again, don't forget that. And last but not least, the bathroom. In a property, sometimes it's always best to have 2 bathrooms if it's a 2-floor property. If not like this one, I want to make sure that the size is good enough. So you want to look at the properties around the area and just see what size are the bathrooms of other properties. And if they're this size, then there's no need to worry because everyone's living with that. And then whenever anyone's looking for a property, they're seeing all the bathrooms this size, so you're not missing out on anything. And that might mean if you can make it bigger, perfect. That means you're in for a jackpot. But again, you want to make sure it's got the essentials, it's got the pipework, water's flowing, all's well and good. And if you don't have a bathroom downstairs, at least a WC will always do it justice. As you know from the last series as well, under the staircase, not the biggest, but we put a WC down there. And some people said it was a bit too small, etc., but it worked out perfectly for me. People loved it, and of course you had a full-size bathroom upstairs, so there was nothing to worry about. When it comes to structure now, one of the most important things, I don't know why I've left it till last, but I'd rather get through the inside of the property first. But if you follow me outside, we'll show you a bit of structure and what you need to look for when it comes to the structure of a property, especially with this property. So now, here's a great example of something you just want to look out for. It may not be such a big problem, but look out for it. So here you can see there's almost a line of just an opening in a way. But that's just purely from old cement, just needs replacing. When you would know when you'd need structural problems, just from your own knowledge, is if you start seeing almost zigzags in the brick, that's when there's a problem. And if the bricks are almost coming out onto themselves, almost like a staircase, without having a structural survey done on the property first. One more thing when it comes to structure, if you follow me, the last part, as you know, with this property, is under the bay window, we had some sagging. So you can see here, the brickwork has almost opened up onto itself, some bricks are falling out, and it's all chaos. And that's just purely from the bay window, sort of sagging on the bricks, and they just clearly weren't done properly, and it's just almost pushing the bricks outwards. So that again isn't such a structural problem, but again it's something you will need to fix. But then if you start seeing a few of these problems occur, then of course get someone in to come and do a structural survey done. It makes your life 100 times easier and more comforting. But there we have it. I've been Haggot, aka Hags. Don't forget the name, and I'll catch you in the next